Hi, everybody. So, as you know, I believe it was this last week, I made a bet with Kenny. Kenny was talking about how blacks have low IQs. We never invented the wheel. There was no technology in Africa. He was going on and on about low IQs. And so I bet him $10,000 that my IQ was higher than his. And he decided to take an IQ test and he scored 113. I didn't actually expect him to take the IQ test, but he was so arrogant about it. He posted it on YouTube. And so I decided I was going to take my own IQ test. I didn't really make a serious effort. I was just lying in my bed on my phone and I scored 122, which is 9 points higher than his. Um, and then I announced that I scored higher than his. Basically, he owes me the $10,000. And so rather than paying up, he decided to take a second IQ test in which he scored 124 allegedly. So let's take him at his word that he scored 124. But what I would like to know is what do I get for this IQ, right? Because 122 is within a 93%. It's in the 93 percentile. Um, do I want a cookie? Do I get liberation? Do I get sovereignty? Do I get anything for getting a higher IQ? What if I had a 60? What if I had a 70? Did it change anything? No, it does not change anything at all. Um, and so the purpose of this live stream is I don't understand how they're weaponizing IQ as a moral indictment. When did a number, a single reductive, culturally biased number become the measurement of whether you're a human, whether you deserve freedom, whether you deserve dignity, whether you have the right to self determination? Because that seems to be the excuse that some of these people are using. They're basically saying, well, you had low IQ, therefore you deserve to be oppressed. I mean, they never fully articulate their argument. They just make these conclusions. Oh, you have low IQ. And what does that mean? What does that? I'm trying to figure out what these people mean when they say you have a low IQ and they just stop at that. So what they're essentially trying to do is use people's intelligence as justification for their own oppression. They're saying you scored lower on this IQ test, therefore you deserve your oppression. You deserve everything that has happened to you. You deserve colonization, having your children taken, being enslaved. Um, you should be grateful because you were civilized and you were civilized by people with higher IQs. So stop complaining. You just weren't smart enough to do what we did to you, so you absolutely deserve it. Now, the fallacy is their assumption that these IQ tests were valid measurements of intelligence in the first place. These tests were designed by eugenicists. They were, I'm trying not to use loaded language because I don't want to trigger people, but you probably know where I'm going. And so these tests were designed to prove superiority. Um, so the conclusion was already driving the creation of the test in the first place before the data, right? So they excluded Black people from the creation of these tests, right? So they created the test without any input from anybody else. The test was never really based on science. And then they subject you to these tests and say, see, we have higher IQs, therefore we're superior, right? So they're asserting a conclusion that predates the actual data. Now, I want to posit that even if someone does have a low IQ, it's based primarily on nurture, not nature. There's something called the Flynn effect. IQ tests have risen dramatically across every country ever studied, roughly 3 points per decade over the last century. Humans did not change that. The only explanation is environment, better nutrition, better education, reduced disease, reduced poverty. The numbers went up because the conditions went up. If IQs were based solely on biology, this would be impossible. There are also studies that show children taken from low income households and placed into wealthier ones show higher Q gains of 12 to 18 points. The genetics did not change. The only thing that changed was the environment, right? And I'm just going to admit, if I did not come out of my environment, if I had stayed in the hood, I'm sure that my IQ score would have been much lower. The fact that I was allowed to think, right? Because it is a muscle, you have to exercise your brain. If all you're doing is picking cotton and you're not allowed to read books, so you're not stimulating your mind. I believe it was Thomas Jefferson who said that slavery gave the great thinkers time to think. So basically the so-called freedom that we have, and I'm using so-called in air quotes that we have, was really built on the back of slavery because without slaves working in order to keep the economy functioning, the founding fathers would not have had time to study philosophy and actually create a system of so-called freedom to create a republic. They were studying John Locke, Rousseau, Eastern philosophy. I, I talked about how it was heavily influenced by the Moors, which a lot of people don't know that, but I'm not going to go into detail about that right now because I need to actually produce that. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, but they were heavily influenced by the Moors. Um, so it is based primarily on nurture and your environment, right? Nutrition, lead exposure, time to think, in abstract concepts. And because I have been educated, because I did use that muscle, I I guess I'm allowed to think. Um, but my biology did not change. The only thing that changed is my environment. And if I were to sit down right now, because I guess he took another IQ test and he got a few points added to it, I'm sure I could get a higher score if I actually made a serious effort. If I wasn't lying in my bed doing it on my phone, I really don't care because I don't think that that's just it actually proves anything. Nevertheless, I'm still trying to figure out what do I get. What do I get for having a higher IQ? If I would have scored 70, I would still be just as oppressed as I am having the 122. It did not change my conditions. I'm still subjected to illegitimate laws, to an unjust system that I did not consent to. There's nothing I can do about it because I'm outnumbered by the majority. So what did it actually change? How do I benefit from my IQ? Now, I'm going to be doing a separate video talking about the illegitimacy of the state and procuration, and I'm going to be discussing consent. So I'm not going to go into detail about consent right now, but let's just start out with the premise that nobody consented to take these tests, right? These IQ tests do not exist in the state of nature. No one was born into a world with standardized tests. This was a Western construct, right? A Western examination of human worth and human value. The logic, the language, the values embedded in every single question reflect a particular way of seeing the world from a Western gaze. One culture's framework imposed on the rest of the world, one civilization's definition of what intelligence actually looks like. By the way, there are different types of intelligence. There's cognitive intelligence, and I even talked about different types of empathy. Some people have greater emotional intelligence. Some people have more intelligence for survival skills, which are actually far more important. They can actually exist in a state of nature. They know how to hunt and forage, but there's some people can't actually exist without grocery stores and the internet and the luxuries of modern technology. If they were left to the state of nature, they would perish shortly after their limited exposure, right? Now, we know that animals don't take IQ tests, right? So no one ever asks an elephant, a crow, a wolf, a dolphin to take an IQ test. They're not subjected to examination about their cognitive capacity to deserve rights to the extent that animals can actually have rights. Um, and I'm just basically arguing, I'm just going to basically appropriate the vegan position just temporarily. Uh, um, do cats and dogs have to engage in problem solving? I mean, do we not afford them protection just based on own their own inherent value to themselves? Does it do they not only deserve protection because they benefit us, or just because they have inherent value in their own being, right? Because that's essentially what they're saying. They're saying, well, you can't serve us because your IQ is so low, therefore you don't deserve anything. You don't deserve protection. You don't deserve legal rights. You should just be subjugated, and you absolutely deserve it because you're so stupid. Your IQ is so low. So we would not, if we would not apply this standard to animals, why would we apply this standard to humans? By the way, only the civilized man is capable of the ethical frameworks in the first place, which is why only the civilized man has a demand to go vegan. So you're completely contradicting yourself to say that a low IQ affords you less ethical work. No, the way the framework works is the opposite, that basically the more intelligent you are, the more ethical duties you have. So actually it would be the opposite. You would have a greater duty to, I don't believe in duties, but according to everyone, the dominant framework, the more intelligent you are, the greater duties you have to those who are less intelligent. So it basically means that you should be less violent, less imperialist, more compassionate, right? Your superior intellect should actually lead to better outcomes, right? Is that really what's going on? Or is it going the other way? Do you use your superior intellect to inflict violence, justify it, and then say, "Oh, it was justified because I was so smart, and it was for your benefit, and because God told me to do it, and because I was civilizing you and giving you democracy." So I just want you to understand the hubris behind it, the arrogance that it is a Western construct, and then you're going to um, impose your standards on the rest of the world as if they don't have a right to exist for their own sake. That if they want to live in mud huts, if they want to hunt and forage and live off the land, they have every right to do that. They don't have to take your IQ test in order to have a right to exist and a right to be left alone. Now let's examine what these high IQs are producing, right? Because according to Aristotle, something is good based on its utility. If it doesn't have good outcomes, then it's not a good. What is Western civilization's outcomes? What is it producing happiness? Are we happy under the Western way of life? Are we free? Or we are? I mean, I would say not. I would say that we're oppressed systemically. That you have to work as a wage slave. You're exploited through capitalism. You're harassed by the police. You have unjust laws. You have some people who have complete impunity to do whatever they want because they're protected with immunity. You have Epstein Island, which everybody, this fake outrage, right? Did that come out of civilization or did that come out of the state of nature? All of these moral atrocities, right? Where are they occurring? I mean, I don't think there is an Epstein Island in a state of nature. I'm pretty sure that that comes out of the state of society. I don't think that in a state of nature you would just be making women your slaves and hunting black people for sport. That exists in a state of society, not the state of nature, because you get to use your superior intellect, your high IQ, to justify this wanton, gratuitous, and unjustified violence. Now, the Western world has the highest rates of depression, anxiety, suicide, loneliness, a whole culture of incels, a whole culture of opioid and fentanyl addiction, right? This is the product of your civilization. Ecological destruction on a planetary scale, global heating, huge carbon footprints. So, no, you don't get to assume that everybody wants to be civilized. Plymouth Rock did not land on, or they didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on them. They did not choose to be civilized. I did not choose to be civilized. Now, there are some people who say, "Oh, if you don't want to be civilized, you can just go live in a state of nature." Um, After you have been thoroughly corrupted by the state of society, it's nearly impossible. Even Rousseau said that you can't go back to the state of nature. The damage has been done. It's permanent, right? If I were to go live in some tribe somewhere, I would not be the same as them. I'm not the same. You have already corrupted me so thoroughly that I can't be my natural self. I am not the natural man that I should be. I am not the noble savage. I would love to be the noble savage. I mean, I think we all should tap into our inner noble savage and recognize our true nature and observe it for what it actually is. To notice, to observe that you are not in your natural state, that everything that has been put in you is an artificial indoctrination, and that you don't actually know your true self because your true self has been supplanted by artificial supplantation. I mean, or artificial. I'm trying to use the term that Rousseau used, an unnatural education, right? An unnatural education where you're told the difference between right or wrong. You basically have no natural concept of right and wrong, and you're just basically morally bankrupt because your only moral compass is what is legally permissible, what is socially acceptable. This is no way to exist. If everyone tells you what is right, what is wrong, you can't actually think for yourself, then you are not self-actualized. It is impossible for you to be self-actualized because you don't actually know yourself. Now, again, I scored higher on the IQ test than him. He says that he took a second IQ test and got additional points. The bottom line is that whether I scored higher on the test or not, it still does not benefit me to have a higher IQ. It benefits you. You want to extract, you want me to be productive for your system, which I did not consent to, and I reject the entire premise. I have a right, I have a natural right to exist for my own sake, for my own benefit, not for yours, not for the collective's good, for the collective's extraction. And so even if I were assuming arguendo that I do have intellect, my intellect is for my own survival. Right? Ayn Rand has the expression qua man. Man's intellect is his primary tool for survival. It's for my survival. It's for my benefit. It's not for your extraction. So even if I were intelligent, it's not for your benefit. It's not for your system. It's for my own survival. I don't give a shit about your system. I don't give a shit about democracy, about capitalism, right? So you don't get to weaponize my intelligence against my intelligence or lack thereof against me. It is not a moral indictment. It is not something to be used for your benefit or exploited for your benefit. No human being has a duty to exist for your society, right? Which I'm going to get to another live stream where I'm going to talk about the illegitimacy of the state and procreation. But just arguing though, before I even get to it, just roll with me that no one has a duty to exist for your society. Therefore, the whole framework is illegitimate. Whether I have a high IQ or not does not change my moral status as a human being. It is a natural right, and natural rights predate your illegitimate IQ test. Now, let's see if I have any comments. I'm sure I do. Well, it is what it is. I'm just here to be a truth teller. I'm just so tired because I replayed that video where we are talking about anti-natalism and somebody came in and said, "Oh, well, you people have low IQ scores." And I'm like, "What does that have to That's not even what we're talking about. Why do you flagrantly bring up IQ tests as if it is a moral indictment? What does it have to do with whether we should procreate?" Um, I guess to some extent, maybe it's relevant. It is relevant because I believe that all human beings, not just blacks or whites, all human beings are basically functioning as cats and dogs. They are acting as if they don't have enough intelligence to understand that they are causing all the suffering. If they had any intelligence, you know what? Let me just retract everything that I said. Unless you're an anti-natalist, you're just basically dumb as fuck. If you're a breeder, whether you're white or not, it doesn't matter what your race is. If you're a breeder, I'm just going to assume that you have a low IQ. That's going to be my arbitrary standard. If you're a breeder, then you're just stupid as fuck. If you, mm, y'all, I'm probably gonna lose subscribers for saying that because I'm streaming on both channels. You know what? I'm going to stand 10 toes deep on that. I'm not even going to take it back. If you procreate, you have to accept responsibility for it. I think it's cognitive dissonance to put people in the system and then complain about it. You have no right to complain about anything. If you have a low IQ, then maybe I can excuse you because you're no different from a cat or a dog. But anybody with a modicum of intelligence will understand that they are contributing to the suffering, to the oppression. And the only people I would condemn for not having intelligence are those who procreate. But if you let me read some comments before I keep going because I know I just dug myself into a fucking hole. And I probably just lost some damn subscribers for saying that. And this is so bad because I'm live, so I can't even take it back. It is what it is. Right. You don't have any survival instincts. You don't have any ability to maintain yourself without the state. So your intelligence is not going to serve you very well. You have the wrong type of intelligence. You know how to do paperwork. You know how to read books. Do you know how to hunt and fish? Do you know how to identify which wildflowers are actually edible? Do you know which ones are poisonous? Do you know how to purify water? I think you probably don't. I think your intellect is not going to help you very much in the wild. Um, all right, y'all. I guess I'm going to have to look at my um, subscribers after making this because I just Some That's the problem with doing live streams. Sometimes you go off the cuff and you say things you didn't mean to say. I don't take it back though. That's what I really believe. I believe that if you procreate, then you're just dumb. And I know that sounds harsh, and I know I'm offending people, but I'm not going to take that back. Out of everything that I said in this live stream, I'm going to stand 10 toes deep on that. So I'm going to lose subscribers, but I accept that. Y'all have a good day.